Welcome to section 3 of Engendering Gender Equity in and Through Learning and Teaching Design. So section 3 is really going to provide just my insights and my practices of how I try to establish a learning and teaching environment that is inclusive of women and gender diverse students. There will be plenty of other strategies that you'll be able to introduce yourselves, I'm sure. These are just some ideas. Weeks et al. Identify that establishing classroom norms sets the tone of a class. It helps to provide clear guidance to students in terms of how to behave. It can decrease instances of incivility, and it enables students and lecturers to feel psychologically safe, expressing our ideas and our points of view. Co-developing those social class norms can really help to ensure that students feel that their contributions are valued and respected. So I try to establish those norms of learning and teaching behaviour that are inclusive of all students, and obviously that includes women and gender diverse people. So at the beginning of every session, whether it's online or face-to-face, I deliver an acknowledgement of country. I live and I work on Kabi Kabi country, and I pay my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders leaders, their elders, past, present and emerging. That sets a tone of inclusion and deep respect for the legacy of learning on which we are building. I introduce myself and my pronouns. I do so to normalize the use of pronouns and to make explicit that gender is a construct, that use of pronouns is a construct. I don't use the term "my preferred pronouns are." The word preferred in that context really implies a choice, that somebody has made a choice to define themselves in a particular way. And it's really not taken favorably by the trans or the non-binary community. It's really good practice as well to go around the room, whether that's the virtual room or the physical room, and invite students to introduce themselves and their pronouns. And as they do so, I actually make a list of those names, so I don't misgender or refer to people by the wrong name going forward. I always make a note of their pronouns also. And sometimes names are difficult to pronounce, and so I make sure I write them down phonetically. Again, that's a very inclusive gesture to ensure that people are being referred to by the names and the pronunciation of those names that are true to their identity. I learn how to pronounce those names wherever possible as well. And if I'm not sure, I'll have a quiet discussion with somebody. Where does that name come from? That's really interesting. And how do I pronounce it? Again, it's quite private, but I really want to show them that I value them and their name and how they present themselves. If you really don't have an opportunity to learn everyone's pronouns, it's just good practice to use the neutral pronoun of they and theirs, so that you're not going to unintentionally misgender any of your students or people that you work with. I established a classroom or learning environment with particular expectations. So I establish what those learning expectations are and the learning environment expectations are. And this, for example, will include allowing everybody to speak and finish what they're saying before anybody else asks a question or contributes or adds to what somebody has contributed. And that's actually especially important for women and gender diverse people, because we do know statistically that women are more likely to be talked over, more likely to be interrupted, more likely to be ignored. So it's really important that we establish that this is the learning context in which we work. This is what's expected. I'm also really explicit about the gender inclusive language, and also inclusive languages and ideas that will be expected within the learning and teaching environment more generally. I'm very clear about the inclusive language that I will use, but I also explicitly discourage language and ideas, use of stereotypes, for example, that potentially are racist, sexist, homophobic, or ageist, etc., that really would be culturally offensive. But I also emphasize that this is a learning environment, and therefore this is an opportunity to try things out, potentially to fail, and that we're not always at the main we haven't all reached the same level of understanding in terms of our cultural sensitivity and awareness. So if somebody actually does make a statement that others, another individual, then I tell students right from the start, from session one, I will address that. I won't shame you or embarrass you by that, but I do want to address it because this is a learning opportunity and there will be teachable moments in this learning space. So I will address those opportunities. I try wherever possible as well to schedule classes and drop-ins, consultations, student submission of assignments, etc., at times that suit parents or carers. We again know that the majority of caring or childcare responsibility falls on women and or gender diverse people. Therefore, I want to make sure that they have as equal opportunity to access me or group discussion, etc., as possible. So wherever we can, I schedule those times to suit students and or other academics that have caring responsibilities. I also established screen etiquette online. And while we might prefer for everybody to have their screen on at once, we have to also be very mindful or considerate of the fact that some people do not wish to share their screen. And there's a legitimate reason for that. It might be that they have a child on their lap. It might be that they're feeding a child. It might be that they actually don't want another person for whom they're caring or have responsibility for in the same room to be seen on that camera. It might actually also be that they have some shame associated with the place in which they are living or in which they're studying. So there's a lot of socioeconomic status shame associated with certain living conditions, etc. On shared houses where people have other people in the background that, again, they want to protect their confidentiality. So while we really do encourage that, I acknowledge that not everybody feels comfortable with or can share their screen. And therefore, I create lots of opportunity for chat and for them to contribute ideas and contribute their insights in ways that may not just be through video presentation, etc. I use images and case studies in student learning resources that represent diversity of our community, very consciously avoiding stereotypes and omissions. So you have to see it to be it. We know that people develop and design their aspirations for their future by that which is plausible and possible. So if they see people like themselves with their same skin color, with the same gender, with the same sexual orientation, with their same accent, etc., if they see people like this in positions of professional roles and seniority, they're more likely to aspire to those roles and to those fields of study, for example. So we have to really make sure that we're not reinforcing gender stereotypes in terms of the representations that we make in our learning and teaching materials. So as culture change makers, we can empower possibility through the images that we share. Physicists who are women with a disability, ICT specialists who are older women, nurses who are male, teachers whose gender is non-identifiable. We just really want to expand the cultural representations that we can use in our learning and teaching materials. Try to avoid some of those sites where you've got lots of free images because they tend to work with a lot of stereotypes as well. And that's not an exhaustive list, by the way, of measures that I introduce to the first learning and teaching session, whether again it's online or face-to-face, but some ideas that I thought I would share with you for how we might establish an inclusive learning environment, one that is particularly inclusive of women and gender diverse people. I'd really like you to consider the strategies that you use, as I'm sure that you've already got a whole suite of strategies that you use, and to become conscious of the strategies that you use as well. Thanks for listening. Bye.